very hard to believe it's almost the anniversary of 9/12, the day everything changed in South Africa, the day that the politics and the economy collided and the narrative for South Africa changed forever. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I'm joined by Thabi Leoka, who's an economic strategist at Argon Asset Management, to reflect on the year that was and why we're still fighting off a ratings downgrade. Joining us also Xhanti Payi in a couple of minutes' time. We'll chat to him from Nascence Advisory and Research. I think 2016 has been an epic year, Thabi Leoka.
It has. I think for journalists it's been amazing. For economists it's been draining.
Draining why? It's been a bit volatile, a little bit crazy.
Not a bit volatile, very volatile. You can't forecast the rand when, every now and then the hawks investigate the Minister of Finance. You can't also forecast the rand when there are other issues such as Brexit and EM outflows. It's just been very difficult, and it's been heavily weighted on politics more than economic fundamentals.
I bumped into somebody in the shops there that I said, why are you talking about politics all the time and not about the markets and the economy? Well, unfortunately, politics in South Africa has become the economy, hasn't it?
Definitely. I think that you can't speak about the economy without all the markets, without politics. There's just this very strong symbiotic relationship, and especially this year we've seen politics interfere with the bond market, in equity markets, all data releases. It's just been quite a remarkable year in terms of data and the influence of politics on the economy.
And the politics has been at the centre of the ratings agency's chief concern related to our stability as an investment grade country. We've passed muster, we've done okay, but that threat is always there in the background, regardless of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, the hateful speeches, Gwede Mantashe put it, people were actually looking as if they hated each other at the NEC. I mean, all of that stuff is either, depending whether you see the glass half full or half empty, either a very good or a very bad thing. I would tend to see it as a very good thing.
I don't know. I just think that we've been kicking the can down the road, and I think that the rating agencies have also been a bit too soft on South Africa versus other emerging markets. If you look at all the variables that they look at versus your Turkey and your Brazil or Russia, we actually should be downgraded. And if you look at how the market has been pricing, let's say the bond yields have been saying, look, we should be a double B country, and we're not. And I think this continuous anxiety, every time leading up to June or leading up to December, it kind of has to stop, and we have to stop it either by reforming or the rating agencies will stop it on our behalf by downgrading us.
Now, are you sort of advocating that we should have a downgrade, that actually come June next year, we should get a downgrade, learn some tough lessons, some tough love?
I think that if we don't reform, and if we don't reform is difficult and it's protracted, and I think that we don't get that. If you look at Brazil, they've had reform over many, many years, and they did it at a time where global growth was quite strong. I think that if we don't tackle labor reform, if we don't tackle education reform, if we don't tackle the oligopolistic nature of South Africa's economy, and we just keep on kicking the can down the road, maybe we deserve to be downgraded, and only then maybe we'll start to...
I want a straight answer from you. Would you like to see us downgraded to force the reforms?
If it forces reforms, and if it means that we are downgraded for a year, and then we...
Nobody's ever downgraded for a year, though, unless you're South Korea.
South Korea.
But South Korea is an extreme place. They take extreme measures under extreme duress. We are not, Xhanti Payi, in that kind of hurry. Sorry to have ignored you, by the way. But when I get into talking to Thabi and we get into a conversation, Thabi is saying we deserve the downgrade. We should get the downgrade because it will force our hand and make us grow a little and grow up a little bit. Should we get the downgrade come June?
I think it actually might be, because I think in a sense what we've been doing is stopgap and hoping that small little things, small little messages here and there. If we're downgraded, we had no choice but to actually make things right. I think where we came from in 1994, perhaps with a different leadership, but when we were really, nobody actually cared about South Africa, and we had to work very hard to make people notice, and I think we'll probably do the same now, so we might actually need it.
I mean, one of the city economists suggested that the reason why the ratings agencies are giving us a pass this time is because they know that this will give the president the ammunition to sack the finance minister. It's a slightly spurious idea, but it's one that I can work with, and maybe that's the reason. We give Pravin Gordhan extended shelf life. The trouble is, if he was fired, if we were downgraded for not doing his job and not getting the reforms through, then who would we get as the next finance minister? That is the big risk, isn't it?
Well, I suppose there were lots of rumors about who that would be, right? They thought he might even come from Eskom, but maybe that's out of the question now. But certainly, there is some sort of insurance in the idea that we don't get downgraded, because once that is happening, what's the worst that could happen? And I think that's always the case where people have been saying, look, you have to keep this guy because he's our only guy to keep this economy stable, the market stable. So if we are downgraded, we have all of that fallout, then there would be no reason not to, because then you'll say, okay, fine, we need a very new slate, we need to start thinking this afresh.
And maybe we do.
I think we do. I think Fuzile Lungisa would be an excellent minister. He's the DG currently, and traditionally, well, if you look at Nene, Nene has been there for a while.
Would the thinking be that different? Because Lungisa Fuzile has been there for a long time. Throughout I think he worked under Pravin Gordhan. He worked then under Nhlanhla Nene, again under Pravin Gordhan. Isn't he just more of the same? I mean, these are solid technocrats. And
yes, but then he doesn't. So he knows his job in terms of what the role of Treasury, and that's what's important. We don't want somebody who's a politician.
But you have to be a politician in that role, because you've got to drag all the carcasses that sit in cabinet with you.
That's true, but then if we have, let's say we get downgraded, and we have a new people, younger, in government.
I like fairy tales as much as the next person.
I really think that it would be a good thing. So we have younger ministers who actually know the job and who are there to do the job, rather than people who are politicians who come with a political kind of agenda or have a political tilt. I think that, especially from the Reserve Bank and Treasury, it's very important to have people who know the job and are there in the interest of the country.
No, and provided everybody behaves in the interests of the country, of course, then it works out that way, and we've had the interests of the country foremost in our minds, right up until about, 5 minutes to 8 on the 9th of December last year. Xhanti, I put the point to Thabi, and you would have heard it earlier, that the 9th of December last year was the catalyst. We headed to that first anniversary. We're 51 weeks since then. I would argue we've had a remarkably good year of introspection. All of the stuff that was sort of not spoken about, all the stuff that was swept under the carpet before the 9th of December last year, has come out in the open like the filthiest of dirty laundry.
Sure, and I think actually in many ways we actually used that crisis very, very well, right? Everybody has had to get up and realize actually that things were not as stable, that this thing could all fall apart very, very quickly. So we learned that very quickly, and I think we saw business moving into the space, in the leadership, of course, of Treasury. We know many people in labor, the private sector, so everybody is actually paying attention now, which is a great thing. But I think I want to agree with Thabi here that we need fresh blood, we need young people who are actually going to move this thing a little bit. I think, Pravin has done a lot of very good things. As a minister who has a lot of experience, I think, Mr. Fuzile is also a great guy. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time. He's even starting actually to speak a little bit political. But what we actually want at the same time, though, is to move beyond, the whole, well, we have to keep things together. We've got to be conservative. We've got to move a little bit faster, because we've been doing the same thing, and it's not moving us forward.
A little bit like Brexit and a little bit like Trumpist America. We need to be a bit more radical.
Yeah, I think we need to radical, not I suppose in the traditional sense, but there's new ways of doing things. I think we've watched the US, for example, over a period of time doing new...
Finance Minister Payi, the first 3 things you do, and don't laugh at this, Finance Minister Leoka, because once I fire him, you're next. And the first 3 things you do on day 1 in the office as the new Finance Minister, should I appoint you?
Chief, you put me on the spot. I think the first thing I would do actually is to start... Okay, I would actually work very hard on infrastructure, spend that money. I suppose in order to make sure that we are actually going to spend it, we have a lot of money set out and it's not coming through the system, and that actually make sure we push that.
You would make sure that would happen. Finance Minister Leoka, you're gunning for the job. I'm not sure who I'm going to appoint this evening.
It's a tough one, because I agree with Xhanti that infrastructure is important, but we simply don't have the money. I think
it's been budgeted for, but it's sort of been frittered away over time.
I think that I would scrap out, I'd get clarity on nuclear and scrap it out. I would get clarity as in from the president, because right now Treasury doesn't have clarity on nuclear. I would also try to get clarity in the NHI, because I think that those are the 2 monkeys that will be on my shoulder, because those are always mentioned, but no one knows about them in Treasury. Social assistance, or that welfare that we have, the grants.
You can't take it away. You're not allowed to take it away. I'm not allowing you to take it away.
Not that I can, I won't take it away, but I just fundamentally am against the reliance on the state.
So
And
how then do we
I
grow the
would-
economy? How do, what are the, so does the Deputy Minister Payi's infrastructure, aka Donald Trump's strategy to borrow even more money to go into infrastructure, work to drive growth in the economy so that we have less reliance on the public teat than by so many people in the country?
It's a difficult one because so do you extend rail infrastructure when there is slow growth and nothing really to export, or do you do it because you're doing it for the sake of spurring growth? And
So what is the thing to do? Come on, Minister.
You
see, it's a hard job,
it's a
isn't it?
very hard job. It is a very hard job.
Look, money begets money. I think that this is the thing that we actually haven't done. We know that we've done this before. When we were building infrastructure for the World Cup, we did really, really well. The economy grew. We were investing in those rates that we all talk about.
We overpaid. We wasted money, and we got a
But
series
global
of
economy is also different.
Had we not actually overpaid, I mean, that's a different story altogether. But we actually, employment was going up.
Yeah.
People were actually out there doing things that actually were quite useful. So it's not as if we were actually digging up holes and then, plugging them again. We were actually doing, that's infrastructure that we still have. Except one of the problems we have is that it actually only stops so far. One of the things that we have got to realize is actually that people have to relate to the infrastructure. So there are many things that we haven't done. I mean, when I mean infrastructure, it's not just roads alone. We have to talk about the schools, the hospitals, and all of the other, absolutely, and shale.
Shale is big. The MPRDA's moved along the last
Yeah.
week or so. The government's finally relented in terms of getting a free 20% stake in every project in the country, and will at some point in the future be prepared to pay for those stakes. That suddenly provides the incentive we need for the exploration companies to put their money into those holes in the ground. That sort of stuff.
That
I
is
think I'm going
great.
to become finance minister.
I think so too.
Yeah.
You get it.
Also, I think that, when you said
The
infrastructure, I
politicians.
think the rest of Africa, that we need to have infrastructure that will allow us to trade with the rest of Africa.
Passport
I think
systems.
that passport systems, railway, roads, all those that will enable us to easily transport our goods to the rest of the continent.
Best passport story, White Basson trying to do big business in Angola. He's got a 10-year visa to go to the United States and back whenever he feels like it. He has to wait 2 weeks for every Angolan visa he ever needs in order to grow business in that country. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll be the finance minister. Thabi Leoka, the economic strategist at Argon Asset Management, and Xhanti, Economist at Nascence Advisory Research, both freelance advisors on the freebie ticket, of course, to Finance Minister Bruce Whitfield. Thank you very much. Oh, it doesn't sound good at all. I would absolutely detest it. But yeah, we need some smart ideas. We need some smart tricks. We've dodged the ratings downgrades. Now we look forward to June, and we wonder whether or not we're going to pass that as well. It's going to be like the albatross around our necks unless we choose to cast it off and actually get some growth going. Till next time, bye-bye.